Hi everybody, we're back. Keystone Module 2 practice test. This is our first open-ended question. It's number 24, and it's all about data analysis, particularly a box and whisker plot. Let me just tell you, when I look at this problem and I see its open-ended nature, my eyes are immediately drawn right here to the box and whisker plot. And the very first thing I'm going to do before I even go, I'm not even reading the question yet, and my instinct is already to go like this. 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. I tend to do that anytime I'm given a box and whisker plot because I know each part of the box and whisker plot is worth 25% of my data. So I'm doing that before even reading the question. As I start to read the question now, it says, the box and whisker plot below summarizes the number of cell phones sold at a department store over the past 60 days. I am going to highlight 60 days. I think that might come into play a little bit later. Okay, so let's look at letter A. What is the interquartile range of the data? If you watched any of the earlier multiple choice videos, we talked about interquartile range. Just in case you did not, let me redefine interquartile range, which I'm going to call IQR, as the upper quartile, which is Q3, minus the lower quartile, which is Q1. Now, looking at my box and whisker plot, let me do some labeling. This guy right here is not considered a quartile. That's my minimum value. My first quartile is going to occur right here. After 25% of the data here, this first line, the left side of my box, is going to be my Q1. And the next line, which is also my median, is my Q2. The third part of the box here, which is the right side, this is my Q3. So knowing that I need the Q3 value and the Q1 value, I want to make sure I know exactly where those are on my graph. So my Q3 value looks to be, if I trace this down here to the number line, that looks to be 35. Minus my Q1, if I trace this down here, that looks to be 29. And 35 minus 29, of course, is 6. So my final answer for part A, interquartile range, is going to be 6. Okay, letter B. Over what percent of days were there between 30 and 38 cell phones sold? Okay, well, if I find 30 up top here, 30 is right here, that's the median of my box and whisker plot. And if I find 38, 38 is here, all the way at the end here at my maximum value. So if I look at my two green markers here, from 30 to 38, that contains 25% plus another 25%. So I'm going to say on 50% of the days, there were between 30 and 38 phones sold. Okay, letter C. On how many days did the department store sell between 25 and 29 cell phones? So let's actually change colors here. Let's find 25 and let's find 29, and we want to know how many days. On how many days did we sell between 25 and 29 cell phones? So 25 is right here. It's my minimum value, 25. And 29 brings me to quartile 1. So on 25% of my days, I sell between 25 and 29 cell phones. Well, 25% of my days, remember, 60 days, is 25% of 60 days. And the math calculation that goes with this wording is 25% as a decimal would be 0.25. Of means multiply 60. So I'm really taking a quarter of 60. 1/4 of 60 days ends up as 15 days. So 15 days is going to be my final answer for part C. And last but not least, part D. How do you know that the store sold between 35 and 38 cell phones on 15 days? Well, let's look at part C and do a little thinking here. I already know that 15 days from right here represents 25% of my data. So 15 days represents 25% of my data. So if I look up at my box and whisker plot between 35 and 38, 35 is right here, 38 right here, so that is 25%. So if 15 days is represented by 25% of my data, and 25% of my data lies between 35 and 38 cell phones, then I can be sure that the store sold between 35 and 38 cell phones on 15 days. So I'll say, since 35 to 38 cell phones, let me push this up a little bit here, represents 25% of my data. I know between 35 and 38 phones were sold on 15 of my days. Okay, so that is our answer for the first open-ended question. Come back for the next video if you need number 25.